I had never expected betrayal to arrive like this, quiet, almost polite. I was returning from a long day at the law firm, tired and drenched from a sudden December rain in Dallas. The sky was the color of steel, clouds thick and low, and the driveway of my newly inherited house stretched before me like a trap. The house belonged to my late Aunt Lillian, a woman I had adored, who had raised me every summer and left me her small, elegant Victorian with strict instructions to care for it. The moment I stepped out of the car, I knew something was wrong. The front lawn, meticulously arranged with heirloom roses, peonies, and my aunt's favorite dwarf magnolias, was flattened. Not wild or overgrown, gone. Dirt stretched smooth as a tennis court, with a pile of rolled sod stacked like bricks near the porch. I froze. Rain dripping from my hair, my hands gripping the steering wheel, I couldn't speak. Then I heard them. My parents' voices, loud, casual, entirely too cheerful. "Emily, you're home early." Dad called from the porch, wiping his hands on his khakis. He stood tall, broad-shouldered, hair-streaked gray, wearing a polo shirt that made him look more like a retired country club member than the man who had just destroyed decades of a garden. Mom appeared behind him, iced coffee in hand, smiling as though nothing was wrong. Her blonde hair, perfectly styled, reflected the fading sun. "Isn't this just the perfect update?" she said, gesturing to the empty dirt. I stepped forward, voice trembling. "Update? You destroyed Aunt Lillian's garden. Every plant. Every rose. Gone. How could you?" Dad laughed, a low, casual sound, like he had been expecting me to react exactly this way. "Those bushes were messy. Thorny. A liability. I just streamlined things. Practical improvement." Mom sipped her coffee. "You know, this will actually increase the property value. Imagine how impressed the neighbors will be." The words hit me like a punch. My aunt's garden wasn't just plants, it was memory, legacy, years of care. And now it had been erased by the two people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. "You don't understand," I said, my voice cracking. "Those roses were 50 years old. They were my aunt's life's work." Dad stepped closer, expression calm but dangerous. "Life's work? She's gone. You inherited the house, not the garden. We're just helping you manage your assets." Assets. The word tasted bitter. My stomach churned as I realized this wasn't care. This was control. 2 years ago, they had asked to stay temporarily. They claimed hardship, lost jobs, medical bills, needing a place to land. I had said yes. 3 months became 6, 6 became a year, and now. I realized I had been trapped. Mom glanced at Dad, then back at me. "We've been here for your benefit, Emily. You should thank us." Thank them? My heart pounded in disbelief. This was my house, my aunt's legacy, my responsibility, and they had erased it for a putting green in the backyard. I tried to push past them, storming toward the house. Dad's hand shot out, gripping my shoulder. "Watch your tone. We've been nothing but generous." "You're not generous." I spat. "You've destroyed everything that matters to me and you act like it's nothing." Dad's eyes darkened, but he smiled thinly, almost predatory. "You'll calm down. You always do." The word struck a nerve. Always do. For 2 years, I had bent, compromised, tolerated their whims. And now, with Aunt Lillian's garden gone, the last thread of my patience snapped. "I want you out," I said, voice low but steady. "Both of you. Leave my house. Now." Mom's smile faltered. Dad's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me," he said. I said leave. "You've overstayed. You've abused my generosity, destroyed something irreplaceable, and I will not forgive it." Dad laughed softly, a dangerous sound. "We're not leaving. You invited us, remember? Temporary stay turned permanent. And now you want to throw us out? I realized he was serious. Not joking. My chest tightened. I will file an eviction. You are not permanent residents here. This is my house, my property, and my inheritance. You have no right. Dad's smile widened. Eviction? That takes months, Emily. And you know how the courts favor seniors with medical conditions. We've planned carefully. You can try, but you'll fail. Fear clawed at me, but anger fueled me. I stepped back inside, hands shaking, and noticed something I had missed in my shock, a small envelope, stuck under the front mat. My name, in my mother's handwriting. I opened it. Inside, bank statements, receipts showing they had already billed me for the sod installation, contractors' messages confirming they had upgraded irrigation, and a note, "We're already established. You can't touch us." I sank to the floor, heart hammering. 2 years of blind trust, gone. They hadn't just erased the garden, they had calculated, premeditated, and weaponized my generosity against me. And then I heard it. My father on the phone in the living room, not knowing I was listening. "She'll come back. She always does. I just need her to calm down first." My blood ran cold. This was war. And for the first time, I realized, this time, I wouldn't back down. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache and a sense of dread that made my stomach twist. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' smug faces on the porch, their casual destruction of Aunt Lillian's garden flashing like a warning in my mind. I knew I had to act carefully. Any rash move could escalate things beyond my control. I brewed coffee in the kitchen, hands shaking, scanning the counters for clues, evidence, anything I could use. And then I noticed it, a small notebook, leather-bound, peeking out from under the couch cushion. I hadn't seen it yesterday. I hesitated, but curiosity overpowered caution. Flipping it open, my blood ran cold. Inside were detailed notes, meticulously organized, lists of contractors, schedules for home improvement, and instructions. Notes about me. Keep her busy at work. Feed her guilt if she questions renovations. Emotional leverage is key. If she resists eviction threat, cite financial hardship and medical exemptions. She will eventually concede. Monitor phone and computer usage discreetly. Every page confirmed it. My parents had planned this entire takeover for months, maybe years. My initial anger surged into a cold, controlled fury. I realized something worse. They had already weaponized my kindness, using my trust against me. And if I didn't act, everything I loved, my aunt's house, my inheritance, even my sanity, was at risk. I grabbed my phone and called a family lawyer I had once consulted for estate matters. "I need an urgent consultation," I said, voice tight. "My parents, they've taken control of my home. I think it's premeditated." He listened patiently, then spoke slowly. "Emily, this is serious. From what you describe, it's more than just overstepping boundaries. They're establishing legal grounds to resist eviction. But if we act carefully, gather proof, document everything, you can reclaim control." I left his office with a plan forming in my mind. Step 1, document every interaction. Step 2, find tangible evidence of wrongdoing. Step 3, expose their manipulation to stop them legally. Returning home, I found them already in the kitchen. Dad was on the phone, laughing, Mom chopping vegetables as if nothing had happened. "Good morning," I said, keeping my voice even. "I need to speak with you about the house." Dad looked up from the phone, eyebrows raised. "About the house? Emily, it's all perfect now. The yard, the renovations, you should be thanking us." I ignored his tone. "We need to discuss boundaries. And your control over my finances, contractors, and the property. It's not acceptable." Mom's face hardened. "Boundaries? You invited us to stay, Emily. We're part of this household now. And honestly, your rules are inflexible. That's why we're managing things. Her words made my skin crawl. They weren't just dismissive, they were deliberately gaslighting me, turning the narrative so that I would feel like the problem. I needed proof. I pulled out the notebook I had found, and Dad's face flickered, just for a second. He quickly masked it with a smile. "You're digging through our things?" he asked casually. "That's a bit extreme, don't you think?" I opened the pages, showing him the notes about manipulating me, about eviction, about my emotional responses. "You keep a diary of controlling your own daughter?" I asked, voice low and steady. Dad chuckled, shrugging. "Diary? It's just notes. Practical notes. Nothing sinister." Mom moved closer, face soft now, almost coaxing. "Emily, you always take things too seriously. Don't be dramatic." I realized then that their power was not just in the house, they had trained me to doubt myself, to feel guilty for enforcing my own boundaries. I needed leverage. I called my lawyer again. "Bring someone to the house. We need to document these notes, record conversations if necessary. I can't fight them blindly." Later that evening, I confronted them in the living room. My laptop was open, audio recording ready. "I've seen the evidence," I said calmly, but every word carried weight. "Everything, every plan, every manipulation, every note about controlling me. This stops now." Dad's face darkened, but he masked it with a laugh. "Emily, you're blowing this out of proportion. You're letting emotions run wild. Why don't you sit down, take a deep breath?" I refused. I needed him to understand the stakes. "No, you listen. You've turned my home into your playground, destroyed what mattered to me, and now you think I will just forgive it. I will not. You're leaving. Or we go to court." Mom stepped forward. "Court? Don't be ridiculous. You don't know what that will cost you. You'll be bankrupt before the judge even hears your case." But I had a revelation. I realized the one thing they hadn't accounted for. I know their history, their patterns, their arrogance. And for the first time in years, I felt power, control. "You underestimated me," I said, voice calm, precise. "And that was your mistake." Dad laughed, but it was sharper now, nervous. "You can't force us to leave. We're established here. The law will protect us." I smiled faintly. "Then let's see what the law says." And while we wait, I held up my phone, showing the recording. "Every word you just said is documented." For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the rain tap against the window, heart still racing. I realized that this wasn't just a battle for property. This was a psychological war. And I had the advantage now, evidence, resolve, and clarity I had never had before. Tomorrow, I would escalate. I would confront them with proof, with the law, and with witnesses. And for the first time, I felt certain, they would not control me forever. But there was one nagging thought at the back of my mind: what if they had more secrets than I had uncovered? And that thought kept me awake all night. Visual Image Prompts, Part 2. I woke with a grim determination. Last night's storm had left puddles along the driveway and the air smelled faintly of wet earth. But the calm outside was deceptive. Inside, the tension was suffocating. I knew they were planning something. I just didn't know what. I made my way to the kitchen, noting every detail: the misplaced picture frames, the clean counters, the faint aroma of Mom's coffee. Nothing seemed out of place, but I knew better. My parents were masters of hiding chaos behind a facade of normalcy. I opened the envelope again, the receipts, contractor agreements, even notes detailing how they had spent my money without permission. But today, I discovered something else tucked inside, a folder labeled, Emergencies Only. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were letters from lawyers, Not just casual correspondence, but legal threats, research on elder tenant rights, and a shocking revelation: they had filed paperwork to establish permanent residency in my house without my knowledge. My stomach dropped. 2 years of temporary stay was now being weaponized as a legal shield. My parents weren't just overstepping, they were trying to trap me. I knew confrontation alone wouldn't work. I needed allies. I called my friend and fellow attorney, Dana, who had always been my rock in crises. "Dana, I need help," I said, voice tight. "They're trying to take over my house. Permanently. They've planned everything. Notes, contractors, legal filings, everything. I'm not exaggerating." Dana's voice was calm but firm. "Emily, document everything. Record conversations if possible. Take photos of the property, the renovations, the notes. If they think you'll back down, they've miscalculated. I'll come tomorrow to help you review evidence." I spent the day in quiet observation. Dad was unusually cheerful, practicing drills on the newly installed putting green, humming to himself. Mom flitted about, arranging furniture, acting as though she had not destroyed anything, as if the house was hers by default. At 3 p.m., I decided to check the security cameras I had installed after moving in. I watched hours of footage in disbelief. There they were, late at night, sneaking into the basement, removing boxes, moving antique furniture, and rifling through files I thought were private. They weren't just living here, they were hunting for leverage. And then I saw it, a man, mid-40s, entering the house with a briefcase. I paused the footage and zoomed in. He wasn't a contractor. He carried documents, and his expression was professional, calculating. I recognized him immediately from online research, a legal consultant specializing in tenant rights for seniors. My parents had hired a lawyer to preemptively protect themselves, anticipating my objections. I felt a mix of fury and fear. They had planned every move. Every intervention. They thought they were untouchable. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. Dad came into the kitchen, smirking, holding a printed document. "Emily," he said casually. "We need to talk about your attitude. We've already consulted legal advice. Your attempts to control this household are, frankly, futile." I stayed calm, voice low and steady. "I've seen everything. The notes, the contractor receipts, the hidden filings, even the footage. You can't manipulate me anymore. You're leaving, or we go to court." Dad's expression flickered, an almost imperceptible crack in his composure, but Mom stepped forward, arms crossed, smiling sweetly. "Emily, you're overreacting. We're your parents. We're only trying to help." I shook my head, holding up the recordings. "Help? You've weaponized my trust, my generosity, my inheritance. You've turned this home into a trap. And now, with legal filings, you think you're untouchable. You're not." Mom's smile faltered, her eyes narrowing. "You think you know everything. But there are things you don't understand. Things we've done for your own good." I realized then that she wasn't bluffing. They had secrets, ones that could undo me if revealed. I needed to act carefully. I decided to probe, subtly. "If you were trying to protect me, why destroy Aunt Lillian's garden?" Dad's face darkened. "It was overgrown, impractical. You would have let it rot. We did this for the property's value, and for your sake." "But you lied to me," I said, voice rising slightly. "You didn't ask, you didn't consult, you didn't respect me. And you plotted, planned, and manipulated for months." Mom's voice dropped, a dangerous calm I had never heard before. "Emily, there are things you'll never understand about us, about the choices we've made. Sometimes, sacrifices must be made for the family to survive. You'll see one day." Her words sent a chill down my spine. This wasn't just manipulation, it was emotional coercion, a lesson in control disguised as care. I realized the full extent of their plan. They weren't just taking the house, they were testing me, breaking me, preparing me to fail before the law even became involved. I knew then that I had to uncover every secret, every lie, every hidden document. I had to be faster, smarter, and more cunning than them. For the first time, the house no longer felt like a home. It was a battlefield, and I was fully awake for the fight. That night, I sat in Aunt Lillian's old study, the rain tapping against the windowpane. I organized every piece of evidence, the receipts, the notebook, the recordings, the security footage. Each was a dagger of truth, ready to pierce the illusion they had created. And then I found the final, most devastating revelation, a series of letters, unsigned, detailing financial mismanagement, threats to sell parts of the house secretly, and even manipulation of family friends to side against me. My parents had thought I would never find them. They had been grooming allies, preparing to isolate me. I leaned back, heart racing, feeling the cold grip of betrayal sink in. 2 years of generosity, kindness, and blind trust, twisted against me with calculated precision. But now, for the first time, I felt clarity. I knew their moves. I had their secrets. And I had one thing they didn't anticipate, my resolve. Tomorrow, the confrontation would escalate. The truth would be revealed. And this time, I would not bend. I would not forgive. I would win. The morning sunlight filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long streaks across the living room floor. It was quiet now, deceptively so. The storm from the previous night had passed, leaving behind a crisp chill in the air, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I knew today would be decisive. I had all the evidence I needed, recordings, security footage, receipts, notes, even the hidden letters about secret manipulations. Every lie my parents had whispered, every subtle threat, every act of betrayal, documented and undeniable. They were in the kitchen when I walked in, Dad humming softly as he poured coffee, Mom perched on a stool, scrolling through her tablet. Both looked calm, casual, as if the last 2 years had been nothing but family harmony. I held up the folder with the letters. We need to talk. Now. Dad's expression flickered. He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Emily, again. Can't we just have a peaceful morning? I ignored him. No more games. I know everything. The notes, the contractor manipulations, the filings, the letters. You've been planning to take this house from me, and manipulate me emotionally to make it easier. It ends today. Mom's smile tightened, her eyes narrowing. Emily, you're overreacting. You don't understand the sacrifices we've made for you. I felt a wave of anger, cold and controlled, roll over me. Sacrifices? You've sacrificed nothing. You've used me. Every moment, every penny, every ounce of my patience, you've weaponized it. And now, you've underestimated me. Dad stepped closer, trying to assert control. Underestimate? You don't know the law, Emily. Even if you think you have evidence, we're seniors. We have rights. You can't just. I cut him off, holding up my phone. Listen carefully. Every conversation from the past week is recorded. Every note, every filing, every sneaky action is documented. I've spoken with my lawyer, and witnesses are ready to testify if needed. I know exactly what you've done, and the law is on my side. Their expressions changed, subtle cracks appearing. Dad's shoulders stiffened. Mom's hands trembled slightly on the stool. The illusion of control they had wielded for years was slipping. I took a deep breath, letting my voice drop lower, sharper. And there's more. The letters. Hidden correspondences. Threats. Financial manipulations. You've tried to cover your tracks, but I found them all. Every plan you thought was secret. Every ally you tried to recruit against me, exposed. Mom stood abruptly, panic rising, voice rising slightly. Emily, you can't do this. You're making a huge mistake. I leaned forward, eyes steady. The only mistake was letting you stay here for 2 years. That ends today. You're leaving. And if you resist, the evidence is enough to ensure the court will enforce it immediately. Do you understand? Dad's jaw tightened. He stepped back, his smugness gone, replaced by calculation. You think you've won? There are things you don't know. Things we've done, to protect this family. To protect you. I tilted my head, curiosity sharp. Protect me? Or protect yourselves? Because from what I see, you've only protected your own control. Mom's eyes flickered toward the window, as though she was considering escape. And then she spoke, softly, almost a whisper. There's one thing you need to know, about Aunt Lillian's will. You think you have it all, but you don't. My heart skipped. What do you mean? She swallowed, voice trembling. She left contingencies. She knew you might be overwhelmed, that you'd be too kind, too trusting. There were clauses in her will, if the house was ever mismanaged, she left rights to us. To her family. She trusted no one else but us to protect the legacy. I felt my stomach drop. Every word was a knife twisting. But then I realized something, the documents in my folder, the receipts, the notes, the hidden letters, all of it, proved they mismanaged the property, manipulated me, and acted in self-interest, not to honor Aunt Lillian's legacy. I straightened, voice firm, unwavering. No. Even if the will had clauses, your actions prove you failed. You've destroyed Aunt Lillian's garden, mismanaged the property, manipulated me, and violated trust. That is enough to override any clause you think protects you. The court will see it. Dad stepped closer, his voice rising. You dare. I interrupted, calm, cold, final. I dare. Because this is my house, my inheritance, my life. You have crossed every line. You've tested my patience for 2 years. But the game ends today. Mom's shoulders slumped. Dad's jaw tightened. They realized, they had lost. The next few hours were tense. My lawyer arrived, followed by a witness, and we went through every document, every note, every recording. Dad and Mom tried to negotiate, tried to charm, tried to gaslight, but the evidence was overwhelming. By evening, the decision was clear, they would vacate the house under legal supervision. No lingering threats, no manipulations left. Their control was broken. As they packed their things, moving silently through the rooms they had abused, I walked slowly through the house. I stopped in Aunt Lillian's study, ran my fingers over her desk, and let myself breathe. The house was mine again. Not just legally, but emotionally. The battle had been brutal, exhausting, and ruthless, but I had reclaimed my life, my home, and my aunt's legacy. That night, I stood in the garden, now bare, under the stars. I could still smell the faint trace of roses, of summers past, of memories that no one could erase. I knew restoration would take time, but for the first time, the house felt like mine again. And somewhere deep inside, I realized something else, the scars of betrayal remain, but so does the strength to overcome them. I had survived their manipulation, their lies, their threats. And I had won, not just the house, but my own power, my own voice. Tomorrow, the garden would bloom again. Not as it was, not yet, but it would bloom. And I would nurture it. Just like I would nurture myself, stronger, wiser, and unafraid. I smiled faintly at the stars. Justice isn't always immediate. Sometimes, it's painstaking, messy, and painful. But when it comes, it's perfect. And tonight, it had arrived.